Hey guys, Doug here, KansasRebuilders.com. Hey, today we're going to talk about finishing drywall. I'm going to show you one particular application, and that's using mesh tape. First off, let's get started with what tools we'll need. I use a 10-inch knife, I use a 6-inch knife, and I use a corner tool. And of course I have my pan. It's always handy to have an empty bucket laying around with a scrub brush so you can constantly clean your tools. Staying clean is very important. But let's go ahead and I'll show you how to get started. First thing I want to do is go around the room and prep it. Mainly what I want to focus on is I want to look at my joints, see how tightly they fit, especially in the butt joints. I want to go ahead and zoom in. I want you to notice two things. I want you to see that we have a nice little gap, no more than 1/8 of an inch right here. But when the sheet was hung, it got real tight in this area. So we need to be able to get mud into this joint when we tape it and finish it. So what I want you to do first is I want you to take a razor knife and I want you to cut a little bevel on the edge of that seam, and then I want you to go through the other side. Be very careful when you're cutting towards yourself. Okay, so I just created a groove. That's for mud to go in there and get in that seam and grab so that it has something to hold on to besides the paper. Okay, the seams are prepped and now it's time to start taping. I'm a huge fan of this fiberglass mesh tape. It has the adhesive already applied to it so we can just stick it to the wall and don't even have to apply mud. I compare it to rebar and concrete. It makes the mud product stronger by holding everything together. It also allows us to pre-fill any gaps that we have and put our first coat on all in one shot. Now when we go to apply our first coat, we'll be using a hard set powder mixture or a hot mud, and the product manufacturer suggests that we use mesh tape with that particular product. Now old school guys like my buddy Chuck won't use the mesh tape like here in the corners. They don't believe they can achieve those crisp 90-degree angles with the adhesive already on it. But if you stick the tape to one side of the corner and use your fingertips not to tear the tape and force it all the way back into that corner, I believe you'll have great success. I'm putting our corner bead on. I just want to press it on, make sure I don't have any ripples in the metal, and then I'm going to go ahead and dimple my screw in, and it'll just press the metal in, and I'm going to go every 12 inches. So I'm a big fan of screwing the corner bead on because nails have a tendency to pop out or force them way out when the wood shrinks and expands. I like to use screws to put it on. Again, we want this to be the strongest part of the sheetrock, so I'm going to go ahead and add some mesh tape to it to both sides. When mixing our first coat, again, we're going to use this hard set powder material. I use a 20 again because I got a little experience, can move fast, it makes me work faster. So I am going to start in my pan with 3/4 inch of water. And I'm just going to take the powder and dump it in here just a little bit. And I can see it's still floating. And I'm going to start mixing there. I want to get this as smooth, like peanut butter, I think is a good term to use. But I don't want to dump too much in there because I don't want to ever add water. If this starts setting up on you, throw it away. Do not re-add water. Resist that urge. It will ruin it. This is a chemical reaction that's happening. It's not a drying. If you can see this, this is about perfect. So I'm going to go ahead without messing around and go straight to the wall with it. I'm using 20 minutes. I don't recommend you use 20 minutes. Maybe start with 90. You can go to 45, but you'll just have to get used to the product. But what I want to do is I want to force it. Remember I cut that bevel in there. I want to force this mud through my mesh tape. There's no pretty way to do it. You can take it, put it on there, but you want to force it in that crack. And then just scrape it off. Not a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure when you're forcing it into the crack, but when you're removing it, you don't want to drag the tape out. Okay, you can see I've moved on to the seam halfway up. What I'm still doing is the same thing essentially that I did on the butt joint. I'm forcing it in that crack. I need somewhere for the mud to go into so it holds on. And I can force it through this mesh tape. But this is also where the sheetrock automatically has this bevel, so which is perfect for this size knife. When I'm dragging it out, I just want to get it in there. But I can go ahead and fill that groove. Go back and scrape the top. But I want to fill that area. You can still see our tape, but that's okay. It's nice bright yellow. But just fill that area with your first coat of mud, forcing it into that crack. Our seams, we got our butt joint. Here we are in an inside corner. Main thing I want to notice is this is very important that you use an inside corner tool with your mesh tape. It's important because these knives are sharp. You know, they will stick and cut into the sheetrock. Fix that. Anyway, so if I run my tape along the inside, I'm trying to tape that off, the corner of this trowel will have a tendency to cut that mesh. We do not want to cut that mesh. So if I go ahead and force this mud into this crack, like I said, you could be sloppy about it. Get the mud in between those two sheets where they butt. Take my knife and stick it there. Then I take my two fingers and I push my two fingers right here and I push inside that corner. What that does is there's nothing sharp that will cut that tape. And I can just run it a few times. See, it kind of fans out here, so I'll take the edge, scrape that off, and then press it into that corner. It coated both sides of that corner and pre-filled all in one shot. Okay, I'm back up here at my corner bead. Remember, I mesh taped it on both sides. Now I want to take this same mud and force it into all those little holes that were in there. I want to get this mud behind anything that I can. Like I said, you don't have to be pretty. We just want to get it in those holes. Don't be sloppy and throw it all over the floor, but get it in there and then just score it off. Like that. Then we'll come to the underneath side. Pan's almost empty. Just spot nails with it. Okay guys, first coat's done. Now we're gonna move on and get ready for the second coat. The thing that differs between this video and some others that you watch, we are not going to sand. I don't want to sand anything. If I take sandpaper to this, all these little bits, I'm just going to create dust and it's going to fill all those little voids that is going to hold the second coat of mud. All I want to do is take my 6-inch knife and simply knock off any crumbs or any lines or anything that's in this. I just want to knock them off so that my next coat goes on nice and smooth. Do not sand. Now remember, we used this first coat, we used the hard set or the hot mud because we're able to do 2 coats in one day. Yes, it might not be completely dry, but it's completely hard. And again, it's a chemical reaction that we're doing there. So once it's hardened, it can no longer shrink. And I can go ahead and go over it with a second coat. Okay, remember for the second coat, we're gonna go with the green bucket. That's what we'll call it. It's just all-purpose joint compound. We're gonna do it because it's nice and thick and it's got a nice body to it. It's got a lot of build. So we wanna whip it up and make sure that it's really nice and smooth and it's got no lumps or air bubbles in it. We're gonna switch to this 10-inch knife. And the thought process that we're gonna use behind this is that we're just gonna fill this void or completely hide all the tape. So we want to go ahead and put it on there. But we want to make sure that the tape is completely hidden. Same thing with the butt joints. We just want to use this because it's so thick and it's got a nice build to it. We want to put it on, and the pressure that we want to use is going to be determined by if you're covering the tape or not. You just want to hide the tape. Okay, you notice I didn't put a lot of pressure on there, but my mud did not extend out past my knife. The thought process that I want to use is not to build up the edges. We want to feather the edges. So you see how I hold the knife? I got 2 fingers on there. So after I smooth that down, I got this little ridge. So if I come to the right side of my tape and I push with just this finger, it will feather that mud back towards the center. And that's going to feather my edge and keep it nice and smooth so it's not built up. On my inside corners, it's the same principle as the first with the exception of not adding tape. I just want to get my mud in the corner, and I'm going to use my corner tool again, and I'm just going to hide that tape or just cover it and try to keep the edges feathered. Take as much care with the inside corners down by the ground as you do up top. Make it so much easier when you go to put base trim on. As a general rule, anytime you have to refill your pan, go ahead and clean the pan and clean all your knives. Staying clean and keeping the dry crumbs off the knife is so important to get a nice smooth product.